everyone to a new episode of Cairo Local Time. In the coming 15 minutes, we are going to have a lot of segments covering a lot of subjects. But the prevailing mood is celebrating. Egypt is celebrating. Egyptians are celebrating Christmas today. This is the 7th of January. And here, it has nothing to do with Christians or Muslims. Egyptians are celebrating because we are one. Our national unity can never be shaken. And our very first report of this episode is going to be focusing on what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday, it's phenomenal, I should say so. And I think that all over the world, people were watching what's going on in Egypt with an eye which kept all of us very much proud of being Egyptians. Our nature is different, our attitude is different, and nothing is going to shake this or to touch this even from that far, because we knew well who want to spoil our national unity, and we are not going to let them do it, or at least think that they can succeed. We do have a lot of social media accounts, so we are going to be happy to have your opinions and even your suggestions about what to be added to Cairo Local Time to our program. We have www.facebook.com/CLT Nile TV, on Twitter, twitter.com/Cairo Local Time 4, Cairo Local Time 4 at gmail.com, and www.nileinternational.net. We are going to be that happy, as I said, to receive all your suggestions or your comments. Only in Cairo Local Time you are going to have all these subjects we are going to cover. The coming 50 minutes are going to be that special, so stay tuned only on Nile TV International, as I'm going to be back right after the short break. In this episode of Cairo Local Time, Egypt celebrates Christmas. We do have more local news, whether in the political side, economic or sports side. Also, we do have the obstacles in learning. What are the obstacles of learning? We are going to have a specialist to speak with us about that, and another via phone. Do not miss the Maspiro the Man, the magic of black and white, only in Cairo Local Time. Welcome back, and we are going to start with some of our local news. We are going to start with a special report regarding the visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to the Cathedral of Al-Abbasiyya in one of the oldest Cairo districts, Al-Abbasiyya. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was that keen to go himself to congratulate not only Pope Tawadros II, the head of the Egyptian Orthodox Church, but to greet and to congratulate all Egyptians on the Christmas Eve, on Christmas feast, which we are all celebrating. How he was received, what was the main point in his very short speech, what was the reaction of the people, all this and more, and the details in the coming report. Millions of Egyptians flooded to churches all over the country to attend the Christmas Mass on Friday evening. In the Cathedral of Al-Abbasiyya, the celebrations were presidential. The Mass witnessed the attendance of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who was warmly greeted by worshippers who threw flowers on the head of the state since the very first moment he entered the cathedral, with His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, the head of Egypt Orthodox Church. In a short speech, al-Sisi thanked the attendees for the warm welcome and announced the building of the largest church and the largest mosque in Egypt at the new administrative capital by the coming year, and that he will be the first to donate money for the project. Al-Sisi said that with the exception of one church in Upper Egypt and one in Sinai, all churches damaged in the attacks have been renovated. President al-Sisi asserted that diversity and differences between people were created by God Almighty and should be respected. Al-Sisi said that only beauty has a place among the Egyptians and that ugliness has no place in the country. The president added that Egypt shall teach the region and the whole world love, peace, stability, and security. This is the third time President al-Sisi has paid an official visit to the Coptic cathedral. On his part, His Holiness Pope Tawadros, who was handed a bundle of white flowers from the head of state, hailed the president's keenness to come to greet the Christians in their mass. The Pope also mentioned the martyrs of the St. Peter's Church, saying he is praying for them and for the speedy recovery of the injured, and announced that the church will be named after them, the Martyrs' Church or كنيسة الشهداء. Welcome back. What's really amazing that the Egyptian Muslims are even happier than the Christians with the visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to cathedral yesterday. The last statement, the last phrase or the last words of this report was كنيسة الشهداء or the Martyrs' Church. St. Peter's Church is going to be named after al-Shuhada or the martyrs. And one of the martyrs whose photo was all the time or prevailing all the time in the past few weeks is Maggie. Maggie, this photo which we are going to have right now on the screen, is just a few years old angel who was martyred, who fell martyr in the St. Peter's Church attack. And many Egyptians, thousands, if not millions of Egyptians, put this photo as the photo of their personal accounts in many of the social media accounts, whether in Facebook or Twitter or you name it. But the other photo is more significant and to say a lot about the nature of the Egyptians. Would you please? The second photo is the photo of Maggie's family, her mother, her father, and her sister celebrating Christmas. This is the nature of this people. This is the nature of Egyptians. We are never going to give up. We are never going to let those who want to spoil our joy, our happiness with the feast, do whatever they like or succeed in their mean attempt to let us just yield, give up, and to say that, oh, we are going to give up to sadness. The mother and the father and the little girl, the sister of Maggie, were celebrating Christmas, saying that she is now in heaven. And we are not sad anymore. We are happy that she is in heaven. And she is not suffering. On the contrary, she is now even happier than when she was with us. And now we are very much delighted to have with us Professor Dr. Huda Raghib, Professor of Political Science, and we are going to discuss with her the Mass yesterday. Dr. Huda, hello? Dr. Huda, hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? I'm sorry for the technical difficulty. We are going once again to try to have Dr. Huda Raghib, Professor of Political Science. I wanted to know myself what was going on in the cathedral or in any of the churches all over Egypt, as millions of Egyptians were celebrating and attended the Mass of Christmas all over the country in the churches distributed all over Egypt. Dr. Huda, you are with us? Dr. Huda? Dr. Hoda, can you hear me? Dr. Hoda Raghib? I'm sorry once again. It seems that we do have some difficulties in the phone, but what I knew from my friends that yesterday it was very special, whether in the Cathedral of Al-Abbasiyya or in many other churches all over Egypt, not only in Cairo, all over Egypt, in Alexandria, in Upper Egypt, and also the Egyptians in general and Christians in specific were that happy to listen to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi saying that only 2 churches, one in Al-Minya and another in Al-Aish, just they need the final touches, the tableaus. And right after that, they are going to be that ready to receive worshippers and believers who are going to go and to pray there. Also, he announced that the new administrative capital is going to have or to enjoy the largest mosque, the largest cathedral or church, and in 1 year, just 12 months from now, we are going to pray, all of us are going to pray there, because this is going to be the source of enlightenment once again. Egyptian is the source of enlightenment to the whole world thousands of years ago, and now it's time to once again practice the same job and to once again say to the whole world that we are not only depending on our culture or civilization, we are also the grandsons of the old Egyptians who can do the same and inshallah better. Let me continue with our local news, and starting with Sameh Shukri, our foreign minister. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri starts a visit to Oman, to Muscat, to be accurate, to the Omani capital Muscat, to deliver a message from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Sultan Qaboos of Oman. Foreign Ministry spokesperson stressed that the visit aims at enhancing bilateral ties and resume Arab consultations to face the current challenges facing the region. To another diplomatic issue, Egypt welcomed an agreement reached between factions in Congo. The Foreign Ministry released a statement to express Egypt's happiness after the agreement which was reached between the factions of Congo after such a long time of disputes. And this is, I should say, the destiny of Egypt being all the time the old sister, or the one who is playing a big role in the disputes or in settling disputes in the African or Arab or Mediterranean region. And to take you to some sports items. This is sports, and in the same time, this is also to say how Egypt is shouldering the responsibility of so many things on behalf of the Africans. And this is, I think, is going to be the biggest issue between Egypt and the African Confederation of Football. Egypt's competition watchdog has referred Confederation of African Football chief Issa Hayatou to prosecution, accusing him of breaching monopoly rules with an exclusive $1 billion television deal. The Egyptian Competition Authority announced the measure days before the 16-country Cup of African Nations starting in Gabon. The authority, which comes under Egypt's industry ministry, said an exclusive deal with French company Lagardère Sports for Nations Cup tournaments breaches antitrust laws. The ECA issued an order that television rights in Egypt be widened. It said it would oversee the Confederation of African Football's commitment to the order changes. CAF denied any wrongdoings in a statement, of course, saying that the ECA did not even mention any prosecution against the president of CAF in its letter to the Confederation. The Cairo-based CAF in June 2015 extended a broadcasting deal with the Lagardère Sports for its tournaments until 2028, meaning for 11 years from now, in return for a financial guarantee of at least $1 billion US dollars. As I said, this is going to be the biggest issue between Egypt and CAF, and it seems that it's going to attract many other African nations, and Algeria started to support Egypt in this issue. And tomorrow is another day. We are going to know or to discover who is going also to support Egypt in this issue regarding the complaint or the issue regarding the broadcasting rules and rights. Well, these few minutes were just to present to you some of the local news or the main local news for today. But I'm going to leave you now with a very special segment, numbers and events, and we are going to return back with more in Cairo local time. Welcome back. It's time now to start our main segment of this episode of Cairo Local Time. What are the difficulties of learning? The difficulties of learning, of course, differ from a normal child to a child with not special needs, but with pathological issues, and how we can integrate this child into the society. Try to help him as much as possible, to support him as much as possible, to let him lead a normal life. If we discover this from the beginning, if we deal with him or her in the right, proper way, so he or she is not going to suffer. This is a very important issue. Our children is our life, our future. The coming generation is the generation which is going to be responsible for building this country. So to take care of this generation, of the coming generation, meaning to take care of this country and of our future in general. We are very much delighted to have with us via phone Dr. Radwa Saeed, our psychologist. Dr. Radwa, hello.
Hi, how are you?
First, Merry Christmas, Dr. Radwa, and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for all Egyptians and the other expats who are our dear guests in our country at this moment.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Radwa, as I said, our main topic of this episode is the difficulties of learning. Of course, with you, I'd like first to know when I should worry about my kid that he or she is suffering from something pathological, and a psychologist should interfere here.
Well, it's usually coming from the observation of the school teacher. Mm-hmm. So the mother, while interacting with her child, often she does not notice that there is a problem because she thinks that he is playing or he's going to cope and keep up with his peers eventually. Yeah. So the real problem starts to worry the family when the child becomes reported as behind his schoolmates. Mm-hmm. And they become alert because they are worried that the school will no more accept him, which happens in many cases where difficulties in learning becomes a problem and a disorder that the family needs to handle and take care of. So it's very important that the mother and the father do not panic at this point. Because
this was my common question, ma'am. If you permit me to interfere here, and I'm sorry for the interruption, the panic of the parents can be catastrophic to the child and can even worsen his case. To what extent do you think that we should be that aware of our role as parents to take care of this and to absorb the shock, if I may say so, or describe it this way, because it's not the end of the world. Many children, many kids all over the world, they are suffering difficulties of learning, and it will go on whenever I'm dealing with my kid in the proper way. If you please elaborate on this.
Well, the point that you're tackling is crucial. You are talking about taking care of the caretaker. Yeah. It is very important first that we do not hasten to a diagnosis or to a fear that we have. So a lot of the parents who confront children or have a question about their child in terms of learning difficulties, they are so afraid, for example, that the child is autistic. Yep. And they have all this trauma about the word autism, exactly like some people have the same trauma when they hear the word cancer, for example. Yep. And when we look at both words, it is very interesting because we are all autistic in one way or the other. Yeah. If we're not autistic, which means we are able to communicate with thyself. Thyself means oneself. Exactly the same way a scientist has to enclose with his own self in order to come up with a new idea or with a new invention. So the fact that we connect with oneself and be close to myself is the main core of autism. The problem of some of the children is that they only can communicate with themselves and they're not doing very well in communicating with others. And this is like the main core idea of autism. Of course, there are other associated issues, like sometimes the IQ, the intelligence, is not always very well. Sometimes
and
those
ADHD,
children
I think,
have lower IQ. Sometimes they have the same level of IQ like their peers, average. Sometimes they even are much more intelligent than the other children, but they are not able to communicate that. Yeah. So to start with, the mother and the father, the parents, they should not panic about the fear that their child may suffer from any form of alteration. And let me highlight that word, because we tend to like that our children are like others in their same age group. We do not want our children to be different.
Sure.
Because difference seems to be a stigma. They are treated in a lessening or condescending manner. So we're always worried that our children are not exactly coping and the same like their peers. And when we have this question whether the child does have some autistic features, it's like, oh my God, now we are going to suffer for life. These are all misconceptions, if you allow me. And this is the core point that you want me to tackle in terms of the panic that does occur to the parents once they know that the child may be different from his peers or her peers.
Dr. Radwa, and here my final question, ma'am. Regarding this very crucial and important point you've kindly mentioned, the diagnosis itself, is it that easy? Unfortunately, in the past decade, for example, I've myself had the opportunity to deal with children who were autistic, but unfortunately they were diagnosed in the beginning as if they do not hear well, and unfortunately they have been treated of course in a wrong manner, and because of this their case went from bad to worse. But now the case is different. Tell me about the Egyptian doctors, the children doctors, the pediatricians, the doctors in many hospitals. Do they know now how to differentiate between the autistic features and other features? I mean, now we will not anymore suffer from the wrong diagnosis?
Well, you are also tackling a very important point. First, I'm not a psychologist, my dear. I'm a psychiatrist. So I'm very much aware of the point that you are highlighting, which is that not all the doctors or the general practitioners have the awareness about psychiatric and mental diseases. So the point here, it's very common for an autistic child to be diagnosed with hearing difficulties, as you just mentioned, because autistic children usually do not respond to sensory stimuli like all other human beings. They have their own perceptions. So when we're talking about sensory stimuli, we're talking about sound or pain. And it is not uncommon for a child with autism spectrum to appear deaf, as if he is not hearing you in the first place. And he might be interested in another form of sound, like, for example, the ticking of a watch. So he may not respond to something that his mother is saying, but he could be very attentive to the tick-tock of the watch in his father's wrist, for example, or in another foreigner's hand. So that means he is able to hear the tick-tock of the watch, but he is not attentive to whatever that is being said to him. He does not appear to comprehend it or to hear it in the first place. So it is very important that a pediatrician does have some education in the psychiatric spectrums of diseases, so he would be able to preliminary diagnose autism or difficulties in learning or low IQ, and then when he has any doubt, he would refer it to a psychiatrist for a proper diagnosis and management.
This is a very important subject, a very important topic. We are going to leave you now, ma'am, with a promise that you are going to be our guest here in Cairo Local Time to speak in more details about this issue. We thank you very much for your input, ma'am. Dr. Radwa Saeed, our psychiatrist of this episode of Cairo Local Time. Now we are going to have just a few minutes to take a break with the magic of black and white, and we are going to return back with our guest live here in the studio to speak more about the obstacles of learning this time. But now it's time for Maspiro Zaman.
يعده ويقدمه فاروق شوشة.
The gift of the Nile, the Egyptian soil, is rich and fertile. It has given birth to legends like singers Kulthum, Abdul Halim Hafiz and Muhammad Abdul Wahab. They can be called the three great pyramids of the world of the arts. Taha Hussein, Tawfiq al-Hakim, Ahmad Shawqi and Naguib Mahfouz are other iconic figures from the world of literature and poetry produced by Egypt. On 14th of October 2016, we laid to rest Farouk Shusha, another legend from the world of poetry and the arts. Farouk Shusha was an Egyptian poet who was known for his rigorous language and quite melodious voice, was one of the country's best-known contemporary poets. He was born in Damietta in 1936 and graduated from Ain Shams University in 1956. He went on to work for Egyptian radio and as an assistant professor of Arabic literature. He hosted the popular television program Umsiya Thaqafiya, or Cultural Evening, from 1977 through 2006. Shusha read poetry at his youngest, and afterwards he began a programmatic reading of Arabic poetry at the local library, where he read everything from the pre-Islamic period through contemporary poets. Of the Damietta Library, Shusha related that it was there that my first poems were born. Shusha attended Dar al-Ulum, where he became known as the student's poet. After graduation, he began working as a radio presenter. Eventually, he rose to be director of the Egyptian radio. Later, Shusha entered the field of television. Throughout his media career, Shusha was associated with cultural and literary programs. In 2005, Shusha was named Secretary General of the Arabic Language Academy, a body described as the guardians of the language. The first volume of Shusha's collected poems was published in 1985 and the second volume in 2007. Concerning the volume's publication, Shusha remarked, "I'm happy to be honored during my lifetime, not as is the case with so many intellectuals long after I die." Egypt handed out its most lucrative state-run prizes, now called the Nile Prize. The top literary prize went to Shusha. He previously won a State Encouragement Award for Poetry in 1986 and a State Appreciation Award for Literature in 1997. He has issued a new poetry collection every few years since 1966. A report on the prize calls Shusha a love poet, but Shusha said in a 2006 interview with Al-Ahram Weekly, "Critics tend to think that my poems were written for specific women, but this is not true. Sometimes the point is something else, like the relationship between Egypt and the Nile. The women in my poems are often associated with my sense of Egypt as my country." From his TV programs, Shusha went on to work for the Arab Language Academy. Shusha had the charm to mesmerize his audience in such a way that they would listen to him in pin-drop silence. It was not only the wisdom of his thoughts and the selection of his words, but also his melodious voice and the captivating style of his delivery that made him the focus of his audience and lovers.
Welcome back. To continue what we have started, We had the pathological side of the coin with Dr. Radwa, and now we are very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio our dear guest, Mrs. Sana Thabit, our life coach, to speak with us about now the obstacles of learning or the barriers of learning. Ma'am, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas and Happy New Year first.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we're speaking about a very important topic regarding our kids, our children first. It's not only about these pathological issues, but maybe it's self-confidence issue, maybe it's self-esteem issue, maybe it's being overspoiled, a lot which can unfortunately be a barrier or an obstacle on the way of a child to learn from the beginning to even his or her last years in education. Would you please elaborate first what are the most important obstacles in front of children first before going into the other ages or other stages?
Well, I think I have to start off by saying that we have to differentiate between learning and education.
Okay.
Okay. Learning is a lifelong thing.
Sure.
It starts from within, and it depends on how much you want to know. And you start from infancy. Education is actual learning that is given to you by someone else. So the learning part is something that takes place all the time.
Yeah.
When it comes to actually our children, what we need to do is we need to understand that our kids actually start to learn from the age of, let's say, 6 months when they sit up, they laugh, they play peekaboo, and all of these things. And
Have their own way of communication.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they learn in this process. As they grow older, parents tend to be worried about their kids. There are two types of parents. There's the strict parent who says, you have to do this and do it my way and no other way. And then there is what we call the permissive parent, which is the parent that does everything for the child and doesn't want the child to do anything. The child is never too young to learn. You've got to give them that space in order to make mistakes, because after all, when you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
So if a child makes a mistake, don't admonish the child. Don't punish them. Because what happens if you keep punishing a child or treating them badly for doing something wrong is the child will either rebel, they will either feel that they are not good enough, and that the only thing that they want is really to feel that they are loved and have a place in the family.
These reactions, ma'am, depending on what? I mean, is this a genetic code, for example? I mean, since the very early childhood of all of us, by the way, you would find the parents or the old ones saying, oh, you're just behaving like your dad or your mom, even when we do not know that this is the case. I mean, it's very much spontaneous. It's true?
It's very true. It's something that parents say automatically. And actually, imagine this scenario.
Yeah.
You have a child, and the child notices that you don't like the person that you're comparing them with, whether it be the father, the mother, the aunt, or the grandmother.
Yeah.
And then you tell them, you're just like so-and-so.
Yeah.
How will this child feel? Of course, the child will take it, and they will feel upset about it, and they will react. They will either withdraw, or they will be rebellious.
Ma'am, are you telling me that the pre-school age is a very important, of course it's a very important stage and very important years, but do you think that those years and how we as parents treat our children is going to be reflected at school?
Absolutely. You see, the thing is this. If you don't teach your child how to do things and allow them to make mistakes, for example, a 2-year-old child can learn to make his own bed. Or they can learn to...
Isn't it that early, ma'am?
No, not at all. Not at all. You can help them, show them how. They will make mistakes, and of course, as coordination improves, it will be better. But by the time a child is 3 years old, they can actually come downstairs and help you set the table. Children are very, very flexible. You have to treat them as human beings. The mistake we make is that we don't treat children as human beings. We think that they are little kids that we need to worry about and cuddle. Now, the worst part is not the one that's strict as much as the one who is not and does everything for the child. You don't give the child room to learn.
Spoiling the child, you mean?
Yes, no, it is. Yeah. It is. So what happens? Well, the child automatically thinks in their mind, okay, I like this. I don't have to do anything. So you actually, what you're doing is you're bringing up someone who is lacking responsibility. And eventually, as life goes on, this person expects everybody to do things for them. And instead of learning positive ways of making life easy for himself, he actually learns how to manipulate people in order to do things for them.
Yeah.
And this is reflected in his schooling. Unfortunately, in education, and I have to say, when I've been in education for over 30 years, we've not gone to that aspect of determining, first of all, the number of the child, whether it's an only child, first child, second child, and also whether the child is spoiled or not, because this affects their education. If a child insists on sitting in a classroom and not doing anything, it is possible that he is used to staying at home and everybody doing everything for him.
Spoiled children.
Spoiled children.
Is it a phenomena, or I can say that it's a phenomena?
Unfortunately, yes, it is, and it has been for a while. Ever since I was working in a school, I've had parents who have come to me and tried to move their children to make their life easier to a school that doesn't teach, one of those schools that have come out in the exam preparation. And they wanted their kids to have a chance. They want to do everything for their kids. They want them, if they're being bullied, they'll come and they'll see the child and try and make things better for them. They'll come and tell the school off. You can't do that. You've got to let your kids get on with it. I've had my kids bullied, and my heart breaks. I really feel for them, but all I can do is I can just talk them through it, see what they have to do. It is very important, if we are going to have a good quality of life, is to learn to do things in order to make our life better. You cannot...
You know what's really amazing about what you're saying, ma'am? Let me say, 50 years ago, most of the moms were not that well educated. I mean, I'm speaking about here in Egypt.
Absolutely, yes.
And they were not all graduates from universities, but by nature and by instinct, they knew well how to deal with their children without even knowing the details of the science you are presenting. Why?
Well, I wouldn't say they did. They knew how to deal with their children as much as they were. They had more time. Yes.
The phenomena of spoiled children was not that prevailing.
It wasn't as much. However, although the boys have always been spoiled, and this is another subject that we'll talk about. But the fact is, there was something in those days that is not present now. There was time. There was family. There was a feeling of love and
intimacy.
Yes, and people felt that they belonged. All right. There has always been the parent that said, "Oh, you're a waste of space, you're an idiot." And of course this is very bad, because this absolutely makes a point that the child feels that they're always never going to be able to learn. And I know that parents try to get the best out of the children. I know that parents love their children. But unfortunately, because of lack of time, because of the stresses of life.
And because of their way to express love.
And not only that, the problem with parents these days is that they're worried about how they look like in front of their friends, If that child didn't make the 100%, then, oh my God, what are my friends going to say? So-and-so's son made that grade. Well, you shouldn't do that. Everybody's different.
Yep. If I'm going to have a list of words, key words to avoid learning difficulties, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you name it.
I think if I was to choose the top 4, I would go for love, respect, treating them in a manner where they are human beings, and discussing things with them. That's the most important thing.
Treat your children as human beings. Love, respect, and then it's confidence and trust. Mrs. Thabit, our life coach, thank you very much for your input, ma'am, and have a very good year.
Thank you very much.
Having a very good day.
Thank you for having me.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. Tomorrow is another day with another episode of Cairo Local Time with another crew. Stay tuned only on Nile TV International, always for more. www.nileinternational.net. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman.